The morning air was heavy with silence as 13-year-old Mia sat quietly at the kitchen table, staring at a half-eaten piece of toast. Her father, Daniel, moved around the kitchen with tired eyes and calloused hands, packing his worn lunchbox with leftovers from last night's dinner. The kitchen was small, just big enough for the two of them, and the walls were decorated with school art projects and faded Polaroid pictures of happier days. "You sure you're okay, sweetheart?" Daniel asked, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. Mia nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just tired." She wasn't, not really. She hadn't slept well in weeks, but she'd gotten good at pretending it, masking the fear that knotted her stomach every morning before school. The fear of them. Daniel looked at her for a moment, his brow furrowed, but said nothing. He knew the signs, the silence, the forced smile, the long hours she spent in her room, the way she flinched when her phone buzzed. But Mia was his only child, and ever since her mother passed away 2 years ago, he had tried his best to be both her parent and protector. Still, she kept something from him. He could feel it. Mia walked to school, the way she always did, shoulders hunched, eyes down, earphones in, but no music playing. The world blurred around her. She had learned to move like a shadow, to shrink into doorways and disappear into crowds. But even shadows get noticed eventually. As she entered Crestwood High, she hoped, please, not today, just one quiet day. It didn't take long. Her locker was the first sign. The word freak was scrawled across it in red marker. Again, she sighed, reached for her sleeve, and tried to wipe it off. It smeared instead, staining the metal like a wound. "Did you bring your invisibility cloak today?" A voice sneered behind her. Mia stiffened. Amanda. She turned slowly to face Amanda Collins, the queen bee of the 8th grade, with her blonde ponytail, expensive shoes, and eyes full of ice. Behind her stood Riley and Zoe, her ever-loyal shadows. All three wore matching smirks. Mia said nothing. She had learned early that words only fed them. Amanda leaned in. "You know, if you didn't dress like a discount librarian, maybe people wouldn't think you're a total weirdo." Zoe snickered. "She probably only has one outfit." Riley added, "Her dad's a construction worker, remember? They probably eat nails for breakfast." They laughed. Mia blinked hard. She refused to let them see tears. She turned back to her locker. Amanda reached past her, grabbed Mia's lunch bag, and tossed it into the nearest trash can. "Oh no," she said, mock gasp. "I think your sandwich fell into a better home." Mia flinched but still said nothing. Amanda grinned. "See you at lunch, loser." The day passed like walking through a minefield. In English class, Amanda accidentally tripped her with her backpack. In math, Zoe whispered, loud enough for Mia to hear that she probably still wet the bed. In gym, Riley snapped a photo of Mia in the locker room and whispered, "This one's going viral." And every time Mia looked around for help, she saw nothing. Teachers looked the other way. Students kept their heads down. Even those who weren't cruel were complicit in their silence. It was like the whole school had agreed she didn't matter. No one had her back. At lunch, Mia took her usual corner table, far from the noise and laughter of the cafeteria's center. Her stomach growled, but she didn't bother digging in the trash for her lunch. She pulled out a book instead, pretending to read while her eyes scanned the crowd nervously. It didn't take long. Amanda spotted her, like a predator sensing weakness. She strolled over with her entourage. Their voices grew louder as they approached, drawing attention from nearby tables. "Well, look who's still trying to be invisible," Amanda said, slamming her tray down across from Mia. Riley slid into the seat beside her. Zoe blocked her path to the door. Mia gripped her book tightly. "Please, just go." Amanda laughed. "Ow, she speaks. Maybe next time she bark." Without warning, Riley grabbed Mia's water bottle and dumped it into her lap. The cold splash soaked her skirt, drawing gasps from a few nearby students. Mia stood abruptly. "Stop it." Amanda stood too. "Or what?" Mia's hands were shaking. Her voice wavered. "I said stop." Amanda stepped closer. "Make me." A crowd had started to form. No one moved. No one intervened. Amanda reached out and shoved Mia backward. That was when the cafeteria doors creaked open. Daniel hadn't meant to come to school. He hated interrupting Mia's day or embarrassing her. But she had left behind her math project that morning, the one she'd spent 2 nights perfecting. He knew how much it mattered to her, so he decided to drop it off during his lunch break. What he walked into froze him in place. He saw Mia, his daughter, standing in the middle of the cafeteria, soaked, red-faced, and cornered by 3 girls. Twice her confidence. Amanda's hand was gripping her arm tightly. Daniel's jaw clenched. He set the project down on a nearby table and started walking. Mia didn't see him at first. She was too focused on Amanda's grip, on the eyes around her, on the invisible cage tightening. Then she heard the voice. Let go of her. Her heart stopped. It was her dad. Students turned. Amanda hesitated, confused. Adults almost never came into the cafeteria. Daniel's boots echoed with every step. His safety vest was still on, stained with dust and paint. His hands were thick. With calluses he didn't raise his voice, but the weight behind his words made the room go still. Let go of my daughter. Amanda slowly released Mia's arm. We were just messing around. Daniel stopped 2 feet from her. His eyes didn't waver. Touch her again, he said calmly, and you're done. Amanda tried to laugh. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you, I've raised my daughter to be kind, to stay out of trouble. But that doesn't mean I'll stay quiet while you tear her apart. A teacher finally noticed the commotion and rushed over. Sir, what's going on? Daniel, cut in, I'm her father. And I'm here because I've watched my daughter come home day after day broken. She doesn't talk, she barely eats, she cries in her sleep. And I finally know why. The room was dead silent. He turned slightly toward the teacher. Where were you all these days when she was tripped, laughed at, shoved? I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here because the adults who should have stopped this didn't. Amanda's cheeks were red now. She tried to shrink away, but Daniel wasn't done. You can wear your fake smiles and act innocent, but bullying is bullying, whether it's a shove or a stare or a whisper meant to break someone down. A few students started to nod. Some whispered. For the first time, Amanda looked unsure. Daniel took Mia's hand gently. Come on, babe. But before they could leave, a boy from the back of the crowd raised his voice. She's right, you know. Amanda does this all the time. Then a girl added, I saw them trip Mia last week. One by one, the silence broke. I saw her locker trashed. They shoved her in gym class. They laughed when she cried. The teacher's face fell. Daniel turned to the crowd. It takes one voice to say it's enough. Today, it's mine. Tomorrow, it should be yours. Then he looked at Amanda one last time. I hope you remember this moment for the rest of your life, not because I embarrassed you, but because someone finally showed you what it looks like to stand up. He turned and walked out with Mia by his side. That night, Mia didn't hide in her room. She sat beside her father on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, sipping cocoa. I didn't think anyone would ever stand up for me, she said softly. Daniel placed his arm around her shoulders. You never have to stand alone again, not while I'm here. And in that moment, for the first time in months, Mia felt safe. She knew the battle wasn't over, but for the first time, someone had drawn a line. And that made all the difference. The car ride home was silent, but not uncomfortable. Mia sat beside her dad. Daniel, her soaked skirt now covered by his flannel jacket, her arms folded tightly over her chest. He didn't ask her anything. He didn't need to. He knew that the words would come in their own time. She stared out the window as the city passed by in soft, rainy blurs. Houses, streetlights, children playing under porches, dogs barking behind fences. A quiet world, one that seemed so distant from what she had endured at school. When they pulled into their driveway, Daniel cut the engine but didn't move. I'm sorry, he said after a long pause. Mia blinked, confused. Why are you sorry? Because, I should have known, I should have asked harder. Pushed through the I'm fines, you were hurting right in front of me, and I missed it. Mia didn't respond at first. Her throat tightened. Then, with her voice barely above a whisper, she said, I didn't want to disappoint you. Daniel turned to her sharply. Disappoint me? I thought if I told you what was happening, you'd see me as weak, or broken. Daniel's eyes softened. Sweetheart, there is nothing broken about you. You've survived more than most adults do in a lifetime. You're strong not because you stayed quiet, but because you kept going. But next time, don't go through it alone. Please. Mia nodded, blinking away the tears. For the first time, the weight on her chest lifted a little. That night, Daniel made spaghetti, Mia's favorite. They watched a movie together on the couch, her feet tucked under a blanket, his arm stretched around her protectively. Nothing had been fully solved, but something had changed. The next morning, he walked her into school. She begged him not to, but he insisted not out of embarrassment. But as a promise, you're not invisible anymore. The school counselor, principal, and 2 teachers were already waiting. Apparently, news of yesterday's cafeteria confrontation had spread fast. Daniel sat beside Mia in the counselor's office as they went over everything: what happened, who was involved, how long it had been going on. For every story Mia told, Daniel felt a new fire rise inside him. Amanda had mocked her for her mother's death. Zoe had accidentally cut her hair with scissors in class. Riley had spread lies online about Mia having lice, tagging people with fake screenshots. None of the teachers had caught it. Some had seen pieces, sure, but no one had truly seen Mia. The principal was pale by the time Mia finished. We failed you, she admitted quietly, but we're going to fix this. Daniel leaned forward. Fixing it isn't just about punishment, it's about making sure no one else goes through what she did. By the end of the week, Amanda, Zoe, and Riley were suspended for bullying and placed into a 6-week behavioral reform program. Their parents, stunned by the complaints, were required to attend mandatory counseling sessions with them, but that wasn't the biggest change. The school announced a new penicillin anti-bullying and specific. They installed a confidential reporting system, set up weekly mental health check-ins for vulnerable students, and initiated bystander intervention training for staff. Mia's story sparked more than policy. It started a wave. Other students, inspired by her courage and Daniel's intervention, began speaking up. One girl named Janelle revealed she'd been bullied for her weight since 4th grade. A boy named Liam admitted to being shelved and teased for stuttering. One by one, stories spilled out, each one pulling back the curtain on a culture of silence that had festered for too long. And through it all, Mia found herself changing. It wasn't immediate. She still hesitated before walking into school. She still caught herself flinching at loud laughter. But every time she felt small, she remembered that moment, her father's voice slicing through the cafeteria. Strong and calm and unshakable. Touch her again, and you're done. It played in her head like armor. A week later, something happened that would have once left her crushed. In the hallway between classes, Amanda just returned from her pastor. She muttered something under her breath, bitter and low. Still playing the victim, huh? Mia stopped walking. For the first time in her life, she turned around and faced Amanda head-on. No, she said. I'm just not afraid of you anymore. Amanda blinked. For a moment, she looked like a balloon that had just lost all its air. Mia didn't wait for a reply. She walked away. Later that day, a classmate named Hannah approached her in the library. I saw what you did, she said shyly. That was kind of amazing. Mia blushed. I don't know about amazing. No, really, Hannah said, sitting down across from her. You stood up for yourself. Everyone saw. It's like people are finally seeing you. Mia smiled. Feels weird. It feels right, Hannah corrected. They studied together for the next hour, talking about books and music and their shared hatred of gym class. It was the beginning of something Mia hadn't had in a long time, a friendship not born out of survival, but sincerity. At home, Daniel saw the difference. Mia started humming while doing homework. She asked to go to the bookstore one weekend. She told him funny things from her teacher's quirks, bad cafeteria food, new jokes she'd learned. One evening, as he washed dishes and she dried them beside him, he said, "You've been smiling more lately." Mia shrugged playfully. Maybe the spaghetti's finally working. He chuckled. Or maybe you're just realizing how powerful you are. She looked at him. You're the powerful one. No, he said gently. All I did was remind the world that you matter. You're the one who proved it. The following month, the school held an assembly. It wasn't just about Mia, but she was the catalyst. The principal spoke first, followed by the counselor, then by several students who shared stories of their experiences with bullying. Then Daniel was invited to speak. He stood on the stage in his work boots, still wearing his safety vest. He looked out at a sea of faces, kids' parents, teachers. Some were curious, some respectful, some nervous, but all of them were listening. He took a breath. I'm not a teacher, he began. I'm not a doctor or a lawyer or a counselor. I build houses, I use my hands to create things. But a few weeks ago, I realized I'd missed something important. My daughter was being torn down, and I didn't see it. He paused. Bullying isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's the face of a kid who stops talking, who stops trying, who disappears right in front of you. He looked at the students. If you've ever seen someone being hurt and stayed quiet, I want you to think about this. Silence doesn't protect anyone. It only gives power to the ones who don't deserve it. He turned to the teachers. If you've overlooked a child because you were busy or tired or unsure, just remember, sometimes noticing once can change everything. And finally, to the parents, don't wait for your kid to scream. Pain doesn't always come with volume. Sometimes it whispers. Be the kind of parent who hears it anyway. The gymnasium was still. Then came applause, not explosive, but honest. Students clapped. Teachers clapped. And somewhere in the back row, Mia stood up and clapped too. That night, Mia gave Daniel something she'd written. A short piece from her journal. He read it in silence. People think courage is yelling. But sometimes courage is just showing up again the next day. It's walking into a place that hurt you and saying, I'm still here. And if you're lucky, someone will walk beside you and say, I've got you. For me, that was my dad. He folded the paper and pressed it to his heart. Thank you, he whispered. Mia grinned. Don't start crying. You'll ruin your tough guy reputation. He laughed. Too late. Weeks passed. Then months. Mia was no longer just the girl who was bullied. She was the girl who stood up, who made change happen, who helped others find their voices. Amanda, Zoe, and Riley kept their distance. Now, the school watched them closely. But more than that, something in them had shifted too. Maybe it was the consequence. Maybe it was the shame. Or maybe it was realizing they weren't untouchable anymore. Either way, they weren't the center anymore. And Mia, she wasn't their target. She was her own person, stronger, louder, prouder, and most importantly, free.